The financial resources that exist and can be channeled towards progress. But above all, we need leadership. We need leadership to guide us forward into a brighter, more prosperous future for everyone, everywhere. This is what this conference is about. Your Excellencies, we are now just 5 years away from the 2030 deadline to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Yet, the gap to finance them remains vast. Global financing needs have grown dramatically since 2015. This is especially true for developing countries which require $4.2 trillion annually to close the financing gap. These developing countries are walking a tightrope between defaulting on debts, defaulting on their efforts to achieve sustainable development, and defaulting on the promise to provide acceptable standards of living to their people. The consequences are serious. 3.3 billion people live in countries that spend more on debt service than on health or education. Without urgent action, our promise to leave no one behind will remain unfulfilled. Your Excellencies, we cannot afford to lower our ambitions. The Pact for the Future, adopted in September 2024 by heads of state, commits us to closing the financing gap in developing countries.
We know that there isn't enough money in government, in philanthropies, or in development institutions to meet every projection or every promise. And that's why we need the private sector. It's also why we must be more strategic and change how each of us approaches this issue. So let me start with what I do with the World Bank Group. We've been asked to move faster, simplify, operate more efficiently, deliver more impact. What we've tried to do over the last couple of years is respond with a set of reforms aimed at one simple goal. And this is the word that Bob used, be a better partner to our private sector and government clients. So for example, we've cut project approval times by a third, from 19 to 13 months, with some projects now getting approved in under 30 days. We've helped to deepen collaboration across the MDBs and DFI system. We've given clients a single point of contact by merging all our structures in 40 countries already, with more to come. We've replaced 153 item scorecard with 22 outcome-focused metrics. We've sort of shaped our ambition around some very clear goals. Connect 1.5 billion to primary healthcare, for example, or deliver capital to 80 million women to open businesses, or double the agri-business financing we do to 9 billion a year. All the idea is to build ecosystems of growth. Last year, we put $133 billion to work, plus mobilized another $66 billion of private capital. And with the new instruments and capital efficiency measures, we can expand our lending capacity by another $100 billion over the decade. The point is, this is all inadequate compared to the numbers you hear for the promises we need to deliver. Even our IDA 21 replenishment campaign, for which I thank many of you in the audience, including the government of Spain for their generosity, even that replenishment campaign, which put together with our leverage capacity, allows us to raise $100 billion for the next 3 years, 70% of which will go to Africa. Even that, at the end of the day, is inadequate when you add the challenges and the money that needs to be put to work.
His Excellency Mr. William Samoei Ruto, Head of State, Head of Government of the Republic of Kenya. Kingdom of Lesotho. His Excellency Mr. Ajay Banga, President of the World Bank Group.
Your Majesties, the King and Queen of Spain, President of the Conference, Prime Minister Sanchez, United Nations Secretary General Guterres, President of the General Assembly, President of ECOSOC, Excellencies and authorities, good morning.
Reciben vacunas, de niñas obligadas a abandonar la escuela. Y estamos aquí en Sevilla para cambiar el rumbo.
We've given clients a single point of contact by merging all our structures in 40 countries already, with more to come. We've replaced 153
The global trading system has now been severely disrupted. Developing countries that had been hoping to increase export revenues to help prevent the
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of the International Monetary Fund. It's a great honor to contain, for now, we provide technical support to individual restructuring and working in conjunction with the World Bank. We're advancing the work at the Global Debt Roundtable, and we're implementing the three-pillar approach to help
Secretary General of the Conference, it is a profound honor to welcome you all to the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. A profound gratitude goes to
examen del tema 1 del programa y haríamos un brevísimo receso de unos segundos para
to welcome you all to the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. A profound gratitude goes to our host.
de Pakistán y al excelentísimo señor Christopher McLennan, viceministro de Desarrollo Internacional y Asuntos Mundiales del Canadá.
People of Spain for hosting this historic conference and for the warm hospitality extended to our delegation. It is a privilege to gather here to reaffirm our commitment to multilateralism and global partnership on financing sustainable development. In mobilizing financing for sustainable development, especially in developing countries. The outcome reflects the group's shared commitment to solidarity.
La conferencia ha concluido así el presente.
For those of us from Africa, Africa's development is first, our foremost responsibility. We approach it with purpose and determination. Yet, strong global partnerships remain essential to our collective success. Calls for greater flexibility in ODA are steps in the right direction. I am encouraged by the recognition of trade and industrialization as drivers of structural transformation. No country has achieved lasting prosperity without manufacturing and export diversification. Africa is ready, poised, and prepared to become the next frontier of global production and innovation. I also welcome the focus on debt, liquidity, and the cost of capital. There is now consensus on the need for a development-oriented sovereign debt architecture, where public debt is an instrument for development, not a trap for distress. Additionally, effective debt management and crisis prevention, including debt transparency and responsible borrowing and lending, are key, while lowering borrowing costs and expanding fiscal space is essential for sustainable development. It is imperative to have debt sustainability and credit assessments that are accurate, objective, and long-term oriented. The independent expert review on debt, nature, and climate, Kenya co-led with Colombia, France, and Germany, exemplifies meaningful partnership for inclusive and sustainable growth. The outcome document also supports the global financing safety net, emphasizing governance reform at the IMF and mechanisms to facilitate easier access to precautionary instruments, lower lending rates, and better use of SDRs. The inclusion of SDRs rechanneling, support for capital adequacy framework, and efforts to incorporate multidimensional vulnerability into financial access signals real progress. What was once radical is now becoming mainstream. We finally have a consensus, ladies and gentlemen, on reforming the international financial architecture. This outcome document now calls for strengthening global economic governance by enhancing the voice and representation of developing countries in international financial institutions. Let us be clear. Without affordable capital and open markets, progress will stall. High debt premiums cannot be fixed by technical adjustments alone. Credit rating agencies also need to change their understanding of African economies. The Africa Credit Rating Agency is a crucial step in gaining a better understanding of Africa. Africa's role is critical to the global climate agenda, but we cannot deliver if our goods, services, and carbon credits are excluded from the global markets or if entire value chains are blocked. We must design trade rules and pricing systems that reward green production and accelerate decarbonization. Africa must be part of that solution, transforming green premiums into green discounts. While I respect the document structure from domestic to global resources, let us not confuse form with priority. Public international finance remains indispensable. Africa is not asking for favors. We are asking for fairness, partnership, and investment. I urge the United States of America to reconsider its position and call on other member states with reservations on parts of this consensus to fully support the outcome document. The world's and Africa's futures are inseparable. Together, let us walk this path with honesty, urgency, and resolve. Kenya certainly will, and I thank you.
Doy las gracias al señor jefe de Estado y jefe de Gobierno de la República de Kenia.
The Queen and I would like to welcome you to Spain, to Andalusia, to Seville, for this 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. This city, which is open to the world, a city that is both Mediterranean and Atlantic, which is both European and Ibero-American, welcomes you with open arms because this city is aware, as are all Spaniards, of the great significance of the message that must emanate from this summit, a renewed and fresh impetus for the Sustainable Development Agenda. Spain is proud of having been chosen to be the host, which reflects our journey and growing commitment to multilateralism and international cooperation over the last 4 decades. Sevilla, the first European city to host this summit, follows Monterrey, Doha, and Addis Ababa as a meeting point for us to discuss a crucial question: how to strengthen the framework for financing for development at this highly complex time. I hope that your voice will resound loud and clear
that a new roadmap will emanate from this summit, one that is based on what is concrete and tangible and actionable, because in these times, delivering on our commitment is the best way to reach the entire international community. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, this conference must be a success because international cooperation is one of the fundamental pillars of the multilateral world. It is the ultimate embodiment of the values that sustain it, especially at this particular point in history where many certainties are melting away and many fears and uncertainties are taking shape. I would like to take the opportunity of being here to underscore 3 ideas. Firstly, in an ever-changing world, cooperation must serve to build the future for generations to come, but also it reflects a present of which we are all, the international community, part of and responsible for. Because there is only one reality and it cannot be fragmented. It doesn't work in silos. And in this context, the Sustainable Development Agenda, adopted in 2015, and now we are 5 years away from the deadline we set ourselves for its achievement, remains fully relevant because global challenges cannot be deferred. They require fresh momentum for our collective effort. And the time has come to give ourselves that energy with determination, with effectiveness, and with guarantees of shared responsibility. Dear friends from all continents, the world's eyes are upon us, not just to hear what we have to say, but also to see what we are ready to do together. And in the face of this historic challenge, we must prove our worth. Sevilla welcomes you, a city where centuries ago the world seemed to converge in one place. Sevilla was a crossroads of cultures and languages and interests which made her an unofficial headquarters of global diplomacy. If today we were to look for an early symbol of what the United Nations might be, we would find it here in the New York, if I may, of the 16th century that was beautiful Sevilla back then, a cradle of globalism. And Spain welcomes you, a country in which Bartolomé de las Casas, Francisco de Vitoria, and the School of Salamanca contributed to laying the groundwork for the rights of people. It was an embryo of international public law and international humanitarian law, which today brings us here together in the spirit of multilateralism. Sevilla is taking up the torch of Addis Ababa. And as we saw in the video, 10 years ago with the 2030 Agenda and the Action Agenda, together we charted a roadmap and a plan for leaving nobody behind. The time has now come to hold ourselves to account, and there is absolutely no room for complacency. The financing gap for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is estimated at $4 trillion annually. $4 trillion. And according to the latest progress report, only 1/3 of the measurable goals will be met. 2 out of 5 families are living in countries that have to invest more in servicing their debt than in the education or healthcare of their sons and daughters. That is not the path for sustainable development. We know that it is a path that leads to frustration, and it is also the path of injustice.